Hi everyone, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina today in the Irving Park neighborhood, and I'm joined by landscape architect Jeff Allen. He's here to invite us into this beautiful Charles Barton Keen home. Can't wait to show you guys more. But first, I wanted to welcome and introduce Jeff Allen. Could you tell us a little bit more about this home and the project that you did with it?
This home was, as you said, designed by Charles Barton Keen, Matheson family. It was built in 1927, and in 2019, Jim and Melinda Rucker bought the house and embarked on uh, doing an extensive home renovation and restoration in keeping with the heritage of the home while bringing modern conveniences to the family. We did simple plantings along the sides of the steps with Pachysandra, which is original to the site. We're using wintergreen boxwoods, which, according to Saunders Brothers out of Virginia, is the least susceptible boxwood to the boxwood blight. And they've performed well over the years. They're fast growing, they're easy to maintain, and they're delightful and certainly period appropriate for this home. On the other side, we used pink shrub roses, which pick up on the vocabulary of the existing pink azaleas opposite to the house, framing the house and the with landscape and vegetation and creating a view shed at this time of year. As you approach the house, we cut into the hillside a motor court with this rolling lawn sweeping so you don't see any paving as you approach the house. We flanked the corners of the motor court with boxwoods, same variety, the wintergreen boxwoods, to anchor the corners and define the space. As you move up into the space, we repeated series of boxwoods that cascade where the steps, announcing to people that there are steps in place, especially when you're going downstairs instead of upstairs. And we used the same vocabulary of planting with boxwoods and Pachysandra. You also get a glimpse of the main entry stairs from the motor court with brick pillars, limestone urns with plantings, as well as limestone finials at the top of the steps, which pick up on the oval lattice openings in the front porch. You have this elongated front porch, almost like a veranda. Um, on the left-hand side, where the French doors are, is part of the sensitive addition to the home. So we expanded the porch. We wanted to break up the space while still allowing views from inside the house to the golf course. So we worked with Eastover planters um, and did some custom design troughs, as well as some standard, box planters. We filled with boxwoods and the two large planters on either side, and then did boxwoods in a series of seasonal color plantings in the troughs. So when you're down at the bottom of the hill, it adds another layer and dimension to the planters, which look like part of the overall landscape. But as you approach the house, then you begin to see they are a trough planter. The other thing the planters provide is edge definition to the edge of the porch. We did match the shutters of the home, just to tie in, the inside and the outside together. And you can see the boxwood hedge from here as the path around the corner disappears behind the boxwood hedge. So you're not, it adds that sense of mystery as you come up and approach the house from the street.
It's beautiful.
As we get to the top, the original pathway ends at the original steps at the base of the porch. And then you can begin to see the motor court unfold below. And we used the motif of the oval in the original trellis to pick out the cylindrical finials.
I love the way that the home and the landscaping really tie as there's so much unity within the two.
The idea between the plantings is that beyond the beauty of the plantings, it provides aesthetics, defined spaces, and we like to use broad brush strokes with simple plantings, broad brush strokes of pachysandra, clusters of boxwoods at the corner, boxwood hedging, and then pockets of ferns for accent plants that add just one more little surprise as you approach the house. On the embankment, there's much more sun exposure, so we had to use Liriope muscari, big blue, with the intent to hold the embankment but also grow in full sun. It has a great effect, and it transitions to the pachysandra with a brick wall below and with the boxwood hedge above. Here we are in the motor court. We used exposed aggregate concrete and broke up the field of concrete with granite cobblestone inlays. We used the color of aggregate in the concrete to match the granite in the cobblestone. We also used a low granite cobblestone curb around the perimeter too, to also give the impression that the driveway is sunken. It helps reduce the visual surface area of the overall design while bridging everything together. The grid is laid out on access to the front door, where you see the new set of steps and how it blends in with the existing set of steps on the porch. We use 2-column flanking the base of the steps with limestone planters and plantings in there to draw your attention to the step, with landscape lighting for nighttime. We also, at the top of the steps, used limestone finials that pick up on the oval of the trellis in the front porch. Let's come inside and talk about how we start our approach to landscape design from inside the house and its relationship to the gardens surrounding it. As you can see in this home, the front door and the back door are in alignment. They create an axial relationship, which we like to use in relationship to the motor court in the front, which is on access to the front door. And then as you move toward the back, you begin to see a draw to the exterior spaces in the backyard and garden. We think it's very important to design the garden spaces around the interior of the house, where you spend most of your time. So you have views from inside the house out to the gardens, but also when you're outside, it's a setting for the house to be built within the context of the garden. As we stepped outside, we created this brick and stone landing with a millstone, creating this outdoor foyer to the pool terrace. The lower terrace here, we had the opportunity with a colonial revival arts and crafts home to mix and match a variety of materials, which was a lot of fun for us. The brick picks up on the base of the original house as well as the retaining walls. A lower parterre garden with an armillary, between the sunroom and the bedroom to create a nice space looking outside, but also when we get to the pool house, when you're looking back at a series of brick walls for retaining that tie the landscape to the house and the gardens. We also use freestanding brick walls for privacy and to create a sense of space in the courtyard. So the idea is that you have this expansive space broken up into a series of garden spaces, um, flanked by edges with brick walls that create boundaries, and then putting gardens in front of it, it gives it a backdrop and part of an overall composition.
And are the buildings in the back of the house, are these new over here?
Yes, the pool house and the garage are two outbuildings that were designed by Jim Collins here in Greensboro, and we were part of our process was siting the buildings in relationship to the house and the elevation of the site. And we put the pool house on access with the sunroom, again, to create that line, form, and mass composition together easily, comfortably, and period appropriate.
And from the beginning of the project, when the homeowners first came to you to completion, how many years did it take?
Let's see, 3 years in total. We started in 2019 and finished in 2022, I believe. Um, so much of this house was constructed during COVID. It's made things more lengthy process. We have this, gray York stone we use with pitched edges to be again more period appropriate with the era of the home. And then from here, from the top riser or the top tread, we transition into a limestone pool terrace, so it's easier on the feet in the hot summers. We picked up on the limestone vocabulary with the column caps and the urn planters. Again, when you walk out of the house, the idea is that this draws you into the space as a welcoming. And then if you turn back to the house, you'll see where we incorporated old lead planters that the homeowner had from his previous home and brought in again old and new materials together seamlessly. I wanted to point out as well the millstone, the granite millstone, with if you look in the middle here, you'll see a bronze medallion that filled the interior of the millstone space, which was purchased from the homeowner on their trip to Morocco. And I love that we got to incorporate that in the garden. So every time he or his family come out and enjoy their outdoor spaces, they have a little token. There's a millstone here and here, and again, those two begin to talk to each other, which reinforce the axial relationship. And there's another Moroccan medallion in the middle of that one as well. We did a classic rectangular pool with an expansive hot tub in the middle, all designed to be balanced and symmetrical. We have a shallow end with steps in one corner and a deep end. So you have opportunities for all varieties of people to enjoy the pool. The hot tub is designed to have host the whole family when they're in town. We did a dark, rich blue color for the pool, which we think contrasts really well with the limestone. Um, Boxwood hedging we use to encapsulate the pool garden with an opening onto the lawn terrace. Um, on the four corners, we use terracotta planters with boxwoods to anchor the corners and add variety to the site and layers to the plantings. Underneath the pot, so it's hidden. And what it does is it allows for seamless or sightless irrigation. It gets away from the unsightly. The bench along this edge too is so you can host a handful of people, and their view is back to the beautiful pool house. And if you look behind you, you will see we did these sunning terraces, and we used the same limestone with elephantine between the joints. So we did not want to create an entire sea of paving for the pool area. Kindred Interiors did an exceptional job of sourcing all the outdoor furnishings for the project. So the planters, we got large 3 by 3 by 3 restoration hardware planters, painted the same colors, the short shutters to tie everything together again. And then we use holly in the middle of the planters to scale down the facade of the house or the garage from the side. So, and it's kind of French in a way. I know topiary and planters, and we wanted to use the planters to add extra height to the planting so we didn't have to wait as long for impact. On the other side of the lawn terrace, we picked up on the boxwood hedge to define that as a space. Behind the boxwood hedge, we put a row of columnar horn beams, and we use that to provide a backdrop and screening and anchor the space. They are underplanted with tardiva hydrangeas, little limes, which bloom white in July. And on the other side, on the outside of the wall, we did another row of horn beams, tying this as one overall space together and framing your view. We wanted to add some dimension to the walls, and we used climbing roses to provide seasonal color and also begin to soften the wall as they begin to climb up and drape over the top of the wall. We used the clematis in the corner again to soften the corners in the back, in front of the boxwood parterre with roses and treeform hydrangeas. It's subtle, but it's very nice, and I think it adds a lot of pleasure and enjoyment and depth to the garden. And you can see here up on the porch, we have the Eastover planters again with boxwoods tying the front yard and the backyard together. And a lot of these details and repetition are subtle cues of making the space feel comfortable, lived in, as well as having always been here. There you have the view to the back of the house, again reinforcing that axial relationship and the relationship from the landscape to the house. Details you don't pick up on the retaining wall or the brick walls is this subtle sweep of the brick wall as it transitions from a tall wall into a short wall.
And how tall is this brick wall here?
It's roughly 8 feet. And we employed curves in the wall because the house was so orthogonal or square, rectangular. So we wanted to incorporate softer edges in the retaining structures in the garden walls. Here we designed a colonial period gate, again painted black to match the shutters. We used brick columns to anchor the spaces. The height of the wall is designed for pool enclosure and security. Here we used limestone pineapple finials as a nod to Southern garden and history. The brick wall curves around and then returns and then has a vertical curve behind the Japanese maple. And then there's a small lead frog that we found on site that we reused as a greeting into the pool garden. Yeah, so we added a little more whimsy to the space. As you enter the pool gardens from the gate, you begin to see this wonderful composition beyond. You have your foreground with your house and the Japanese maple. You have your middle ground with the rounded boxwoods, the urns and the steps, and then the background, the pool and the gardens beyond. A very inviting space to walk into.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for having us at this home. It's an incredible project. We're so honored to be here and to get to see all of the details and the work that your team put into this project. I wanted to ask you before we wrap up if there's someone that's wanting to do a similar landscape project of this scale or of this style, what type of advice would you give to them as they start their journey?
Great question. We always advise people to bring in a professional as early as possible in the design process. It helps. It helps bridge the architecture to the landscape, and it helps we start to think about things like drainage and grading and context and setting and how the house is going to be positioned within all the different program elements that we're giving you.
That's such good advice so that you're not having to come back after construction and dig things up to do the landscape. So, well, thank you so much, Jeff, for having us,
Yeah, thanks
and
for having
we
me.
appreciate your time.
Thank you, Crystal.